Stream. AI Simplified. For today, we're going to be going over the quantum book and let me go ahead and put my paint guard on. We're going to start out with the quantum physics book and the AI Simplified book instead of starting out with painting. Okay. So yesterday we went over if this, that, or this wasn't yesterday. I think I skipped 2 days of doing this. I'm sorry, guys. So we went over if-then statements, what, when, how, why. So I've never heard that. I mean, I've heard that noise, but usually I'm playing music. Alright. Happy 4 months for subscribing. Alright, the shortest route. Pathfinding algorithms are search algorithms that are used to find the shortest route between 2 points. They have many uses, including vehicle navigation and computer gaming. The algorithm is used as games need algorithms. The algorithm is programmed using a weighted graph that shows all of the possible paths available. The circles, or nodes, represent waypoints or special locations, kind of like Pokestops. There's a hype train that just started. So if you want limited emotes, go ahead. But if not, we're gonna keep reading about the shortest route. I might get my Gwenum cosplay out for the next cosplay stream, I think. Alright. The circles or nodes represent waypoints or special locations which are joined by lines known as edges. Oh, that reminds me. Did I fix the goal? And programmers add a weight to the edges, which these are in parentheses for some reason. Boo. Alright, I made it new subscriptions instead of renewed subscriptions. And I feel bad for that. I should have made it renewed subscriptions. I'll change it. Alright. So, programmers add a weight to these lines, which reflects a cost such as distance or time. So it could even be gas, fuel, mileage, wear and tear on a vehicle. The algorithm calculates the weights to find the shortest path. So here it would be like da-da-da. So this is a really complicated way of finding the hypotenuse of a triangle, essentially. The algorithm finds the lowest cost route from A to Z. The weights are calculated together to calculate... Why is calculate in that sentence so many times? The weights are added together to calculate the total cost of each available route. And then the algorithm is used in pathfinding or moving across a graph. It plots a path between points or nodes. Route 8. Okay. And then imperfect solutions. Ooh! Some problems can be too complex for an algorithm to solve quickly. In such cases, an AI can do a brute force search, which means to methodically work through and evaluate every possible solution. This is slow, however, and in some cases impossible. A more efficient alternative is to use a heuristic. This practical method uses a common sense approach, searching for an approximate solution by estimating a good enough choice at every decision point based on the information available. So this is using wayfinding as an example again in Manhattan. So the distance heuristic maps routes by calculating squares moved vertically and horizontally. It can also be used to plot path in an area with a grid system. So it calculated the destination and then used the routes from there. So this is kind of like a lot of video games where you'll notice that it seems like it's trying to send you through an impossible route. It's because the map just isn't set properly. Like the nodes aren't set properly. The red, yellow, and green routes, which are of equal length, are different ways to plot the route in a grid. In this kind of model, diagonal routes cannot be taken because these are not available. And then heuristics guide the AI to make the best choice at every intersection. Performing a task! Woo! Embodied AIs, such as robots, use a technique known as planning to help them solve practical problems. Planning involves understanding the environment or location in which the task must be performed and mapping out the actions required to complete it. It's kind of like what we do on a daily basis. The AI must identify each step required to fulfill the task and the optimal, lowest cost sequence in which to perform them. If the optimal sequence is not possible For whatever reason, it must also be able to decide the next best alternative, so a best case scenario or a best worst case scenario. It must also identify and avoid any actions that would prevent it from completing its task. In order to complete its task, the robot breaks it down into a sequence of individual steps. God, I used to do this. It was awful. The robot's initial move is to find the blue box in its surroundings. The robot needs a ramp to get onto the platform, so it does this. The ramp needs to be adjacent to the platform, so it pushes the ramp. The robot can now use the ramp to move up on the platform next to the blue box. And now it can push block off. Wow. So simple. Ooh, this looks fun! Probability theory is nothing more than common sense reduced to calculation. Oh, that's such a good quote, dude. Such a good quote. Alright, let's get some, like, background music going. Alright. Some quieter background music. And now, ooh, we're going good on this. Alright, so, quantum physics. We're on the electromagnetic effects. We went over spectral lines and spectral barcodes and wavelengths of light yesterday. And so this is related to that. They're trying to figure out how to measure whether a wavelength of light could be, or how can light produce an electric charge is the question that this page poses. So, another emerging problem was how to explain why some metals produce an electrical current when a light shone on them. Even more strangely, it turned out that only the wavelength of the light and not its intensity was important. So, like, the wavelength of the light is like when you can hear a light. Red light, which had a long wavelength and low frequency, had no effect, but ultraviolet light generated a current even when it was weak. I could have told you that, based off of just paint. Today, this effect is the primary mechanism in photovoltaics, or solar cells. It is also the phenomenon behind electron microscopy. But until Albert Einstein made a breakthrough in 1905 and named the phenomenon the photoelectric effect, which is in a different page, but further down, no one knew how it worked or whether it was linked to the other ongoing mysteries. Physicists were also perplexed by the question of how warm things emitted heat or light. Well, never mind. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, and the same goes for heat. Heat dissipates, or gets cooled down, but heat is just energy. A wire, for example, turned red at a certain temperature but glowed white when hotter. Wait, I read this page, I think. In 1888, German physicist Wilhelm Hallwachs shone UV light on a freshly cleaned zinc disc connected to an electroscope. A device inside which was a thin gold leaf, nope, that's how I said it correctly. That would deflect if an electric charge was present. So this is super cool. Like a gold leaf used to deflect the light. Just to see if the metal foil... Okay. Alright, so radiation. Radiation off of, like, essentially a black hole. Kirchhoff's mental model. Back in 1859, Gustav Kirchhoff had developed a thought experiment to explain how objects emitted radiation. He conceived of a black body, an idealized object which absorbed all the electromagnetic radiation that fell on it until it reached thermal equilibrium with the environment. The body would then emit radiation in a way that was affected only by temperature, not its shape or even what material it was made from. In the 1890s, physicists built experimental black bodies from which to take readings. Sorry, I'm getting... They measured the spectral radiance, the energy intensity of the body as a function of wavelength, and it resulted in a graph with a characteristic curve that varied with temperature. So, the radiator absorbs all incoming electromagnetic radiation and re-emits it as heat in a way that is dependent on temperature. Strange results. Planck's constant mentioned. The black body radiation curve showed that at higher temperatures, the emitted radiation became more intense. This matched the real-life effect of heating an object and seeing it glow more brightly as it got hotter. But could physicists account for this? In their laboratories at Cambridge and Princeton, physicists Lord Rayleigh and James Johns wanted to use the best classical laws, Maxwell's electromagnetic formulae, and the established rules of thermodynamics to make sense of the electromagnetic radiation function for a black body. So they're trying to map They were trying to come up with an equation that would properly simulate in a computer the graph of the emission of the wavelengths. This was clearly not what happened in real life. This was the right way to approach the problem, but the results were confusing. When the wavelength was high, their curve matched experiments relatively well. So, wavelength being this function, the x-axis. When the wavelength was small, the predicted energy was so high as to be off the scale in their theorem. And this wasn't what happened in real life. So they did measure this in real life. I just think they weren't able to measure it. I kind of suspect that they were correct about this specific thing. Because it goes on to say that... Okay, so I did read this page because I couldn't wait any longer. Like yesterday, after I forgot to read it. We'll read the whole thing. Then German theoretical physicist Max Planck made a breakthrough. He had been working on the problem for some years by this point and had reached a rather desperate frame of mind. He therefore decided to go against his instinct and treat energy as if it were a discrete variable, so something that's in like chunks or pieces, instead of a continuous stream variable, as in classical physics, because they consider it continuous instead of like So we could consider a discrete variable more like the of a drum instead of a drum. He also assumed that the energy could only take certain values, a whole number, multiple of a basic amount of energy. When he did all the math, he realized that this assumption made the theoretical graph fit the experimental results. At small wavelengths, there was now a cutoff where there wasn't enough energy to create complete chunks, and so the curve fell to zero. So let me read that again. So he just did math that made the theoretical graph fit the experimental results. That doesn't make the math correct, because the experiment could have been wrong because we don't know all the constants needed. This experiment is an oxymoron. It's oxymoronic to even try, because we don't know how to measure what we're trying to measure. I'm a little upset at this. So his answer matched experimental findings if he quantized the energy of the light, only allowing it to come in multiples of the fundamental minimum size. That's where we get Maxwell or Planck's constant. His calculations showed him that the energy emitted was proportional to the frequency E equals hf, where h is his constant and f is the frequency of the radiation. The value of Planck's constant is 6.2607015 times 10 to the negative 34. This was much more than a mathematical trick. His constant was later measured. In the International System of Units, they found it to be that in joules. A joule seconds. And it would turn out to be the fundamental size at which energy operates. So they figured out that nature was quantum, or quantifiable. So this curve shows how the intensity of radiation emitted by a black body, or a radiative body, varies with the wavelength of the radiation. Like a black hole. Alright, next we're going to be on quantum theory development. And now for some painting! And a good song. The song came out good. I think. Let me know what you think. I'm going to send the link to this song in case anyone wants to listen to it after. As for this, kind of darken up the darks and then lighten up the lights again. Let me see where this is. Thought I had all my stuff together, but maybe not. Okay, so what I'm looking for is my paint pens. Let's try this. Yeah, no, not that. Not that. Okay. just add them and I set them down somewhere. Oh, here they are. Shake the pan. And then I'm looking for my spray bottle. Should be on my desk. You should see my desk, it's the worst. Oh, found it. You like the book? Oh, the song? Thank you. Sorry. Gotta get the moves out, you know? So I'm kind of shading and cleaning up some edges. too. I'm like having to manhandle this right now. That was gross, don't look. You like it? Sweet, thank you. Oh, you're talking about the song. This is still the same song. It's a 26-minute long song, I think. Something like that. Alright, I need to shake this marker like a bunch. Alright, so the major difference is that this has a lot more shadows. It looks a lot better on camera. In person, I kind of hate it, but I might be able to fix it. And then this also has shadows, that has shadows. I added shadows just about everywhere on the canvas. I just used the color black this time. Yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Oh. Check out the social media, follow the social media, daily paintings and stuff, you know? Talk to you guys later, guys. How you going, guys?